Welcome to But For Real, a variety show podcast co-hosted by two therapists who also happen to be loudmouth feminists. I'm Valerie, your resident elder millennial child-free cat lady.
And I'm Emerson, your resident chronically online Gen Z brat. And on the show, we'll serve up a new episode every other week that will take you on a wild ride through the cultural zeitgeist, mental health, and beyond.
You'll definitely laugh and TBH sometimes maybe cry a little because this is a silly and serious show.
Buckle up, my friends, and let's get into today's episode.
Hi.
Welcome back. We're here.
Welcome. We're here. I'm so glad to be with you.
I know. I feel like it's been 87 years since I saw you.
It has been so long. And we are virtual because we just had to make it work. So,
you know, sometimes you just got to keep being dedicated in adversity. So the adversity just being our normal lives.
Yes, exactly. The adversity of everyday existence could be another title for this episode.
Indeed it shall.
So what I want to know, Emerson, is when in your life did you start thinking about meaning?
I mean, come on. I feel like whatever that tweet that was like, you'll be sitting next to a dude and all of a sudden he's like discovered empathy after like one mushroom journey. And it's like, yeah, I was thinking about this kind of shit when I was 6. Like, I feel like that eldest daughter thought daughter trope. I mean, I take residency there. I've just been thinking I wasn't really around a lot of, my parents really sheltered me from death in general as a child. So I feel like I cope with that weird kind of as an adult. But shout out mom and dad, sorry. But I think it was pretty early on, always asking questions. And I was just like, what are we doing here? Like, what
really though?
What does this all mean? I just was always thinking about stuff. So I would say really early on in my childhood, I was kind of starting to be like, what does this all mean, do we think? And I couldn't really even tell you why. I had a really big imagination as a kid, so I feel like I could just go there. But yeah, we've been thought-daughtering early. I should have an Olympic gold in thinking. So what about you? What's your truth?
Early childhood has always been kind of fuzzy for me, other than like Barbies and trolls and shit. But I know for sure by the time I hit like middle school and started to journal, 10, 11 years old, that big questions were being asked. I was like, I don't know. I guess I hope that that's true for most people, but maybe some people were appropriately occupied by like sports or something that we weren't doing. So yeah, the questions are many.
She was a journaler. Okay.
Yes.
Now it's time for our first segment, Tea and Crumpets, where we tell you what we can't stop talking about this week. So I was like, what the hell am I even going to put this week? I feel like I don't have my ass for my elbow. But I've been rewatching Nashville because 911 Nashville has come out and everyone's talking about it.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Are they connected?
No.
Okay.
Like, it's just, they're both just in Nashville and about like life in Nashville, I guess. Stupid. But like OG Nashville is so soapy and bad. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's just like so drama. I can't listen to them singing. Like, my butt is levitating off the chair because I'm just like squeezing so hard because it's so cringe to me. Like, I just can't deal with how like they sing these songs about this fuck ass stuff. But it's dramatic. Hayden Panettiere, kind of one of my like OG bitchy girls. Like, she's fierce in that show. So I've just been enjoying, and like they show all these scenes because this shit was filmed in 2012, y'all.
Yeah.
The Nashville now would be quaking her boots at 2012 Nashville. Oh my God. So I kind of feel like one of those annoying bitches that's like, you guys don't know what the real Nashville used to be like. Me never even lived in Nashville. But It's really soapy and cringe. It's kind of funny. I feel like I just need something light, and I get fixated on a show like this for a while, and then I drop it because I'm bored. So it's kind of like a no strings attached, which I kind of like. So yeah. What's your tea for this week?
Well, I have to say, I have never watched an episode of Nashville.
And you would hate it, so don't.
I moved here in 2012, and I do love Connie Britton. I like Hayden Panettiere from like early Heroes, but I love Connie Britton. So I've always kind of thought maybe one day, but also you're probably right. Just, you
would hate it.
So my recent tea is also a show called The Lowdown. It is it's an FX show, so it's on Hulu, created by Sterling Harjo, who is a member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. He also directed Reservation Dogs was his show. And man, he apparently is quite prolific, but this stars Ethan Hawke, Keith David, who is one of those like faces, who's been in a million things, but he's not like a household name. And Ryan Kier Armstrong, who was cast as the new chosen one in the upcoming Buffy reboot. So it's a great cast, and it is loosely based on the story of this historian named Leroy Chapman. So Ethan Hawke's character calls himself a Tulsa truth historian, which I love. But he's really committed to exposing corruption, especially among like racial relations kind of stuff, because there's a lot of that in the Tulsa community, of course. But I got to like reading a little bit about this guy, this person who it's loosely based on, who like passed away in 2015 when he was 20 years old. His mother died in a murder-suicide in Tulsa, so kind of dark. Oh my God. But he was an American public historian, citizen journalist, activist, and artist whose research reshaped contemporary understanding of Tulsa, Oklahoma's racial history. So sounds kind of iconic. And even if this is like obviously a lot fictionalized, so far it's really good. We're like 3 or 4 episodes in, and really well done.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Now it's time for Step Into My Office, where you get advice from your favorite professionally qualified, personally peculiar therapist.
So this listener says, Dear Val and M, I've been in therapy for a few years and it's helped with my anxiety, but lately I've been craving something deeper. I keep thinking, okay, I've learned to cope, but now what? I'm not in crisis. I just feel disconnected, like I'm living on autopilot. My therapist talks a lot about thought patterns and behaviors, but I want to talk about like purpose, mortality, the big heavy shit. Is that weird, or is that actually what therapy is supposed to be about? Sincerely, functioning, but in the void.
Oh, dear listener.
Yeah, what do we think?
I think that can be totally what therapy is supposed to be about, if that's what you want it to be about. You know what I mean? Like, and I think just how you framed this with, I've been in therapy, I've kind of learned my patterns, I'm continuing to expand on the things that exacerbate my, in quotations, symptoms, but like what's else, what's more, that's the perfect time to make the therapeutic pivot, whether it's with your therapist now saying, hey, this feels like the next step for me. And if they're like, hey, existentialism really just like isn't my thing. If you just have like a super hard CBTer, I guess, no shade, but like go find someone that like really loves to be in the nitty gritty about that kind of stuff, because there's definitely space for that in the therapeutic realm. I think like 100% there's space for that, because part of you coming to therapy and airing parts of yourself out and rewiring those patterns and learning about yourself, because we're existentialist therapists, like, of course, we are all, I'm always blending that shit in to most of my sessions anyways. But especially the people that are just like, what does this all mean? And how we get really freaked out about that. There's so much in there. What are your thoughts as the PhDer of it all? Can we talk today?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting to me because I'm sure that there are therapists out there who are just like really entrenched in the Western medical model and approach everything from a treatment of mental health disorder perspective. And that's just not how I've ever worked. So, listener, if you find yourself kind of like good to go on the coping skills front, find someone who can go there with you. And I think this is one of those things where, you know, the sort of cliche is like, you can only take people as far as you've gone. Right. And so if there are people out there who, if this is not like the waters they swim in, then they're just not going to be able to go there with you. Right. Because this involves it's a process of being with, right? It is not we are treating your symptoms. It is being in the messy shit that is the ambiguity of real life and all of the aspects that we often try not to think about or that we're just kind of living with, and, you know, the difficulties, the existential givens that we'll get into later. But yeah, it really is a different orientation that some people may sort of naturally blend in, but many may not. So if you are looking for that, it is out there. It is not necessarily easy to find. So it's like, have conversations, maybe do some consultation calls, because not everyone is going to list existential therapy on their website. But hey, it is a box on Psychology Today, so you can try.
Yes. Go find your right fit.
Yes.
And now it's time for the DSM. In our DSM, all varieties of dysfunction, spiraling, and meltdowns are welcome. In this segment, we break down complicated concepts and common misconceptions about mental health, well-being, and tell you what we really think.
I just have to say that having been exposed to the existential humanistic psychology world in the last year, and I still feel like a baby because I'm like, how have I been doing this for 15 years? And I'm really just now getting like more formally introduced to this world and its history and all of that. But so Dr. Lewis Hoffman, who is one of, I would say, like the living legends of existential humanistic psychology, one of the current kind of leaders, along with Kirk Schneider and some other people in Europe, he calls the DSM the damn shitty manual, which I love, which is iconic.
And
it is. So let's talk a little bit about the history and roots of this. So existential psychology grew out of, not surprisingly, existential philosophy. So you might recognize names like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Sartre, Beauvoir. All of them were asking, like, what does it actually mean to be human? Can we have a philosophy that is a little bit more pragmatic and applicable to understanding what the fuck this is and how we do it well? How do we face these realities without the fact that we're all going to die without losing our minds about it? So then psychologists like Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, Rollo May, Jim Bugental, Irvin Yalom, brought all of these ideas into the world of psychology and therapy, really emphasizing things like choice and responsibility, facing life's givens that we'll get into, and really it's an interesting kind of paradox, because I think when we hear some of those words, it can seem to be aligned with that sort of hyper individualistic, like it's up to you to make your life good, right? And it is, but there's also the larger view, like, you know, I view that it very much is also systemically informed, because it acknowledges all of these realities that we live with. And like any thing historically, it's maybe better at that now than it used to be. But I think there are people, especially with Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote The Second Sex and, you know, talked all about like what it meant to be conditioned as a woman, that one is not born a woman, but becomes a woman, right? So I think that it is that blend of like recognizing, yes, it is up to us, but that doesn't mean that it's like a pick yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing. So humanistic psychology, arose around the 50s, 60s that was sort of a reaction against the behaviorism, which is like, we're all just like pushing levers. We are machines. It's just conditioning. And also, so sort of before behaviorism, the big thing, of course, was, psychoanalysis. Like everything comes back to your drives and probably, according to Freud, sex, right? And your parents. And so everything is sort of, family of origin, which, there's a time and place for that, but it is not everything. So humanistic psychology was like, hey, turns out we need to kind of look at like the whole person. And people like Maslow came along talking about self-actualization, Carl Rogers, of, really being, with the client, not as sort of like an expert hierarchical relationship. And some of Charlotte Bueller was another big one. So really humanistic psychology was focusing on potential, right? What if psychology didn't have to be all about pathology, like it had been focused for the first, 75 years of this. So potential, authenticity, growth, viewing people as fundamentally good and capable rather than broken. So existentialists are like, hey, you're going to die. We need to figure out how to deal with that. And then humanists are like, but also you're full of potential. So let's figure that part out too.
Yay. So how do we marry existentialism with humanistic psychology? So the shared DNA of both. Both of these moments arose as, you guessed it, rebellions, baby. Again, against psychoanalysis, against the too deterministic, do you want to fuck your mom, Oedipus of it all? Like to the behaviorism, we're talking Pavlov, salivating everywhere, too mechanical. So it's giving humans aren't rats or case studies. We're conscious beings with agency. Who would have thought? So our existentialism, that is really equating to facing reality. This is now where we go into what we call those existential givens. So these are the existential givens. These are the tasks or the things that we encounter across the lifespan. So death, of course, our finality creates such this urgency and anxiety. Shout out anyone with death anxiety. I'm parking it over there with you too. Freedom, our terrifying responsibility for our own choices. Isolation. So even with love and connection and experiencing that, we still all ultimately remain separate beings. I am me and you are you. And what does that mean?
Go die alone.
Honey, scared. And then, of course, meaninglessness. There is no pre-written script for any of this shit. We must create meaning for ourselves. And people get really tore up over that. I tell clients when I'm being a little existential sneaker, I'm always like, I want you to ponder this. And I'm mean for this sometimes because I'm like, I want you to ponder this. You have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. How does that make you feel right now? And everyone's like, and I'm like, no. But what does it mean to say, like, I have to live with myself for the rest of my life? I get to live with myself for the rest of my life. What does it mean to make meaning out of that, to live with yourself? So really we kind of, and I think there is no set, in like the Erikson psychosocial stages of development, there is nothing hard and fast when it comes to these existential givens. You are probably encountering all of these in larger and smaller quantities across the entire lifespan of how things are occurring for you. And so now we kind of roll into humanism. So again, this is about embracing our potential. This is bringing the warmth or the optimism, having faith in the fact that you're going to be on a growth journey through the rest of your life. The existentialist asks, how do we face suffering? And the humanist asks, how do we live fully? So in practice, again, the existentialism, that's the depth, the authenticity, also the responsibility. That's a big part of existentialism. The humanistic, how is that compassion, the unconditional positive regard? How does that help inform life? And so together, this marriage, it's helping balance the really heavy with the hopeful, which Lord knows we need in these moments of time. Damn. So kind of getting into this like wave of psychology, this existential humanistic marriage of psychology became known as the third force. So alongside of Freud's psychoanalysis and Skinner's behaviorism, because this is emphasizing the self-awareness, freedom, intentional living. So always keep that nugget in your mind. Freud said everything's about your mother. Skinner said you're a woo-woo trained pigeon. The EH folks said you're free, terrified, full of potential. Congrats. Go live it and figure it all out in real time.
Ooh, figure it out. Yes.
Woo!
And the meaning piece, which we're going to keep circling back to, but I always like to say, like, because when we really take that responsibility. And I think, it's different for maybe folks who have strong religious convictions where they feel like, oh, I already get my sense of meaning from this. Like, I'm told why life is meaningful and what's going to happen and what it's all for. And like, that's not knocking that. Like, I think a lot of folks who don't have that kind of envy that level of, certainty about meaning. But for folks who maybe don't have that, who are kind of creating it for themselves, it can be a big mind fuck of like, oh my God, what is it? What's my purpose? What is it? I'm going to find that one thing, right? So I love the quote from Kurt Vonnegut, who said, we're all just here to fart around. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. like the meaning, for the hedonists, like the meaning can just be like, go frolicking through the field, right? Like hug your friend, pet your cat. Like meaning doesn't have to be some like singular purpose that you will discover at some point once and for all, and you'll finally have your path, right? So I think that's important. So what does this look like in practice, in therapy, as a meeting of two human beings, as opposed to mainstream Western psychology medical model of expert, treatment, professional, and the patient? If you can't tell, just really not a fan. So the therapist's role, rather than sort of the fixer or authority, which we still have recognition that there is an inherent power differential. There is a service being provided, right? A professional service. And yet, like, there's room for the humanity too, to be a fellow traveler, as Gollum said. So therapy can become a real relationship, co-creating understanding in the moment. And this is where, whereas like, Freud and some of the other psychoanalysis people would just be talking about like, oh, any feelings that, the therapist or the client has that come up in the context of therapy are all just transference or countertransference. They're about your own shit, about your own life. And it's not about the person sitting across from you. Like Existential-Humanistic would say, actually, that's kind of dehumanizing because we are two people. Like, sure, there may be some stuff that is getting projected from our own shit and vice versa for the client. But also we are two people in relationship. It's a weird type of relationship, but we are two humans engaging with each other. And so there's a more of a space to recognize that, oh yeah, we're actually having feelings about this relationship, this interaction. It's, to me, to pretend otherwise is just kind of, inauthentic. So key principles in sessions, speaking there of that, authenticity, which of course is one of those buzzwords that's like lost all sense of meaning. But the therapist should model being genuine and not performative, right? Like we talk about this a lot in supervision, especially with interns who are coming in like thinking that they have to like wear this therapist hat of expertise. And like, I remember having this conversation in kind of intern supervision consultation. That's a lot of words. But anyway, one of our supervisors basically saying that in supervision with the intern, she was like, well, what did you really want to say in that moment? And she was like, whatever she said was just like super genuine and like really spot on. And she was like, so why didn't you say that? Right. And that doesn't mean that like we should go into client interactions or day-to-day interpersonal interactions with absolutely no filter, right? That's
sure.
Right. What Terry Real would call unbridled self-expression. No, the filter's there for a reason, honey, right? Like we do want to be aware.
Lord knows I need it.
But there's a way to show up. The filter allows us to be skillful and kind, but we can be skillful and kind and still be authentic and genuine, right? Yeah. The therapist also obviously is practicing empathic attunement. So that deep non-judgmental listening, which I say obviously, we like to think that that is always present. And, most of the time, hopefully it is. But it's in other modalities of therapy, I don't feel like that non-judgmental presence is as highlighted. I think some of these humanistic principles have become more folded in recent years to sort of recognize that they are part of the common factors of therapeutic alliance. But they originated from this framework. There's the here and now focus. So really looking at, and I love this kind of stuff, right? Like what's happening in the room, what's happening between us is really a mirror for your life outside of here. That freedom and responsibility, looking at when we might be avoiding choice or getting paralyzed by feeling like we need to make the perfect choice, which shows up a lot, right? The meaning making, helping people craft narratives that align with their values. I love Jen Loudon, who's an author. She has a book called Why Bother? And it's beautiful because it's like we throw out that question like, why bother? And she's like, no, really, let's ask, why should I bother? And really get curious about the answer to that question. That's our meaning making. And then the paradoxical intention of embracing fear can actually help us release its grip. It's, as an act, which is aligned in a lot of ways with existential humanistic. We talk about like the Chinese finger trap. The harder you try to get out of the uncomfortable thing, the more stuck you get. So the more that we can soften around it, the more that uncomfortable sensation like fear can soften. So in EH practice, symptoms are viewed more as signals, not like things that need to be fixed, whether it's anxiety or guilt or despair. Sometimes, and I appreciate it, Dr. Hoffman spoke to this in a talk I heard him give recently, that, we tend to demonize loneliness. And he made a distinction. He's like, no, I am going next weekend to this cabin for 5 days to be lonely. And someone tried to correct, like, oh, do you mean like solitude? He's like, no, I mean to be lonely. like it's stepping into that, actually, as uncomfortable as it is, also provides me this, ability to be in this liminal space that I don't get when I'm constantly able to connect with others, even just like stepping into a little bit of solitude, like actually looking at these uncomfortable things as having value, right? So it is experiential. We're not just interpreting, we're saying what's happening here, and feeling into what's true. So some examples of that, if we're talking about something like burnout, rather than just being like, this sounds like major depressive disorder, we might say like, wow, there might be some alienation from self. There might be a lack of meaning or authenticity in your work. I'm working with someone right now who's like, made a mid-career change into like an advanced degree. And then now in like, I think late 50s, early 60s is like, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. And I do have to keep working. So like, what does it look like to redefine? Because if I stay in this career path, as much as I invested in that time, energy, money, I hate it. And so that inauthenticity would be like soul crushing to stay in it just because of sunk cost fallacy, all of that, right? So as I said, the therapists that we often draw inspiration from, Yalom, of course, our boy, Bugenthal, Rollo May, Emmy Van Derzen, Kirk Schneider, Natalie Rogers. So many who have come before and emphasized these important qualities in the therapeutic relationship of courage, creativity, presence. So not about fixing whatever's showing up, but looking at, for instance, with anxious attachment, it's like, oh, let's make you, a securely attached person. It's getting curious about what does that longing for connection mean about your being human and what connection actually looks like for you. So it can be kind of messy and not always clear, but it's what's real, right? It's a deep commitment to what is real.
Ooh. And so why does this matter? Especially now, we always have to go there. We're living in a modern crisis. Yeah, we have never been more connected digitally, yet more disconnected existentially. There's just so much going on because we're drowning in stimulus. constantly, but we're starving for meaning. There's such a surplus of the rise of AI and information about climate anxiety and the endless scroll of curated perfection self-image. And it's all just kind of intensifying just such a collective identity crisis. Nobody knows what it means to be authentic anymore. We throw that word around like it's whatever. Everyone is like, oh, I've never had an original thought. Well, yeah, because at some point stuff just comes around and there's lack of originality there. So we're really just facing what Rollo May would call the age of anxiety, but only now with better Wi-Fi because we're so plugged in. The world feels increasingly absurd. I think I love that word.
Ooh,
absurd.
yes.
It's fierce. It's such a fierce word. And it's so fucking true right now because our institutions are collapsing. Certainty is gone. I think, especially if you live kind of in the Western world, in the States, I can't help but hearing so many people that have lived here their entire lives and say, I literally have no idea like what's going to happen to the country that I'm living in, let alone the world. So psychology is giving us somewhat of a compass when there is quite literally no map for this stuff. Again, addressing what CBT and other approaches may gloss over. So it's not just about how to cope, but why to live and how to live with the ambiguity of reality, intensely holding those paradoxes of life, that you are going to live in the moments of joy and sorrow and freedom and fear and hope and despair all at once. Two truths can always be happening at the exact same time, and neither are invalid. In fact, they are both true. That both and kind of language. If you're my client, you're like, here she goes again. She's always saying both and. But it's true, babe. And then, of course, how we look at the relevancy in the therapy field. Some clients want symptom relief. They come in, they say, I want you to fix this. I don't want to deal with this. Do something to make it go away. And to that, I will say, I may be the best and worst therapist for you because I'm going to say, that's not how this works. And some people are saying, I don't just want symptom relief, like our Step Into My Office submission. They want depth. They want authenticity. They want a relational presence. They want to be doing the work in a way that feels more worthy, like more meaningful. So this psychology is bridging the science and the soul, which is just the Gaia Center in like entirety, I think. So it's validating that anxiety or that grief. The longing are all part of being alive. It's less on pathologizing behavior and more coming alongside the fact of you're just being a fucking human, having a human experience to what's happening right now. And that's not a mental illness or a pathology. It's normal. It's normal to feel all of these things as we're dealing with existential concerns. And again, kind of how that ties into the sociocultural moment. I think generationally, it can be interesting to talk amongst your peer groups about how we are all facing existential concerns right now. Gen Z is intensely existential and nostalgic. We are a very hopeless generation. There's not a lot of hope there. And so, it's interesting to kind of make that work alongside of decades, fix yourself narratives, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, lean into productivity, biohacking, self-help, optimization will save you. Optimization is great, but it's not going to save you. It doesn't give meaning to your life. There are some things that are totally fine to be optimal. And also life is not fucking optimal. There's not always going to be an optimization for something. So damn it, right? We have to invite, the slow kind of wise growth, which therapy does provide for you. This is not about checking boxes or like getting that spreadsheet done. It is luxuriating a little in that uncomfortable water. It's urge surfing. It's riding that wave a little bit, but doing it alongside someone that can be in the shit with you. And that's really what most of it is. So, the mindfulness apps and journaling challenges and gratitude jars are important. And I do those things and I recommend those things. And also, can you just be a little bit in the void sometimes? together. Go be in the void with your therapist. Say, hey, I would like to be in the void for today. If a client came in, I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Because I have stuff to say.
Oh my God. So one more historical bit that I want to add, and then a couple of shout outs. So it was interesting. So, I mentioned in the beginning that I'm like, how the fuck am I just now like delving in and learning about all of these things and a lot more? We all got Maslow and our 101 but to this level, like I didn't have the exposure to this, in a formal way. What I did know about was the field of positive psychology, which like people like Martin Seligman came along, 25 years ago now and sort of said like, hey, psychology should be more than about, disorder. Like it should be about flourishing. And it's like, hey girl, did you know that the humanistic psychologists were saying this 50 years ago? Hello? But it was so interesting because I read this chapter in, we had a positive psychology textbook in one of my classes this semester. And I think it was Brent Dean Robbins, who's another legend in the field, who wrote this chapter about the historical roots of positive psychology, like back to EH, and how when the positive psychologists came on the scene, they basically shat all over EH and were basically just like, yeah, y'all are not real scientists. There was a reason why your movement faded and you're basically irrelevant. And so we're going to come in and do it properly.
Mean girls.
Right. Like real scientists. And we're going to study quantitative because that is the only respectable science. Like now, 25 years ago, the whole field of psychology, including positive psychology, is kind of coming around to recognize like, oh, wait, turns out the humanists were like onto something and that qualitative research can be very valuable and a qualitative understanding of people's, phenomenological lived experiences turns out is valuable in this field. Who would have thought? But yeah, it was kind of wild, like reading about that history and like there was some cattiness and I don't know that it's entirely resolved either. So I used to be like, oh, positive psychology is amazing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but also like kind of fuck y'all for being so rude to your founders.
I'm like, damn, the divas are fighting.
The divas are. They really are. So the shout outs that I wanted to make. So Dr. Liz Hoffman, this summer, he released 2 books in tandem that kind of complement each other through APA Press. One of them is, I'm not going to get the titles fully right, but Existential-Humanistic Case Formulation, which is fascinating because he talks about how problematic the sort of typical medical model case conceptualization is in that it's all looking problem. You're not seeing the human. You're only focusing on the problem. It's done in the first 1 or 2 sessions. It's static. You put it away. It is purely for managed care insurance bullshit, right? And where he comes along and is like, hey, what if this could actually help us to direct our, therapy in a more productive way and a more whole person way. And we continue to use it to guide and we don't, decide who this person is within the first 2 times of meeting them. Right. And also really calls out how all of that, the Western medical model is deeply racist and sexist and all the things. Right. So shout out to that. 'Cause he was like, oh, and the other book was, basically evidence-based EH interventions, which you can then build in as you're doing your treatment planning from your case formulation. He's about to do a certificate program in all of this that I'm going to be taking. And it's, he said, I didn't want to write these books. I kept asking other people to write them, but no one would. So as a political act, I wrote these books basically so that he could make it clear to people, like, whether it's academic programs, training programs, institutions, agencies that only work with managed care insurance companies, make it clear that these EH interventions are evidence-based. Now, they might be called other things like in, whatever CBT or whatever else, but mapping them on and going like, oh no, when you're doing this, you're actually doing this. And so if you just name it this thing, then your insurance will say, sounds like you're doing good work, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. And then Dr. Kirk Schneider has done so much with the Existential-Humanistic Institute, but he has recently launched this new program that I'm going to be starting in called the Core of Depth Healers, where he's wanting to bring EH type work and like deep interpersonal restorative relationship to all kinds of things. So not just in therapy, but in schools and, across in community settings, making this type of longer term therapy that's not just like quick solution-based symptom reduction available to more people. So that's what this movement is about. So it's basically this free training that he's inviting not just clinicians, but people who have this capacity to be part of this movement in any way that want to bring this kind of work to more people, to be a part of this core of depth healers. So rad. So I haven't started it yet, but I need to get on top of it like tomorrow. I wanted to make those shout outs. And then just to wrap up, basically, what does this offer to our clients, to all of us as human beings? Is it offers a radical freedom that even when we are in the worst of circumstances, Viktor Frankl being a case in point, that we do get to still create meaning and choose our response, right? It's not about just like silver lining the worst situation, but about owning the agency that we still have nonetheless, about looking at responsibility, that freedom is terrifying because our choices do matter, but stepping into that is what makes our life meaningful. Living in congruence, living with authenticity rather than just in a performative way, seeking approval, doing that meaning-making work of ongoing co-creation, looking at that restorative relationship as healing in and of itself, right? Like regardless of what the content of what we're talking about, if we're present together, that is inherently healing. We're not seeking perfection or optimization like you talked about. We're seeking integration, embracing all of the messiness as features, not a flaw. And then, when appropriate, bringing in a little bit more transpersonal spiritual dimension for folks who are aligned with that and looking at this as sacred space. I mean, I think sacred space can even be totally secular, but, it just depends on the person, how they frame that. Really making this inward and outward impact of groundedness, gratitude, openness, and that compassion towards self can expand more, and compassion toward others with that ripple effect, grow within, heal together, baby. And that practicing this way as a therapist really helps to deepen your empathy which can prevent burnout, right? So it reminds us that being human is the work, not just like doing therapeutic interventions, bringing tools, bringing strategies. It's being your most human self. And the more that you walk your talk in this, the better clinician that you're going to be. So EH therapy is like, come for the meaning crisis, stay for the emotional rebirth, and, maybe crying about stardust sometimes because we are here for it. Okay, but for real,
Indeed.
Existential Humanistic Psychology reminds us that therapy is not just about fixing what we perceive as broken. It's about remembering what it means to be fully alive. That invitation to stop outsourcing our meaning and start living it, that even in the unpredictability and finiteness of our life, that it can be unbelievably rich when we show up fully for it. So it's not about having it all figured out. It's just like giving a shit and showing up to the mess.
Hell yeah.
Woo.
Okay.
And now our musical segment. Now that's what I call Okay, where Emerson and I each share a song with each other each week as representatives of our respective generations. We tell you a little bit about the song or artist, and then we press pause, we share the song with each other, and then we come back for our live reactions. And we're capturing it all on a Spotify playlist linked in the show notes for you.
kind of existential edition here. I chose End of Beginning by Joe. So, oh my God. If you were on TikTok, bitch, if you were anywhere on the internet, you've heard this song.
Wasn't me.
He dropped he dropped this in 2022, but it blew up on TikTok in 2024. So the artist is Joe Keery, most well known for his role
about
as
him.
Steve Harrington, from Stranger Things. I love this song. It was overplayed for a bit, but I feel like it's perfect for this. I think it truly captures like an essence of Gen Z nostalgia and existentialism, having a recognition for your former self, finding meaning in a special place. This song makes me feel vibrational and contemplative, is what I wrote. How funny.
I love that. Okay, let's give it a listen. Dang. That was so good.
You knew it, right?
Well, the only part that I recognized was that just trust me, you'll be fine.
Be fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like the rest of the song, holy shit. I'm like, I mean,
it's
it was
fierce.
a client who told me about him. So I'm like, okay, I need to get on there and actually listen to 3 years too late. Okay. I'm not going to play my whole song for you because it's long, but I'm going to play the first little bit, and then your homework is to listen to the rest of it because you're just going to cry your little eyes out.
I'm like, bitch, not you giving me an existential crisis at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Oh my God.
Right? My God. Oh, I'm shooketh every time. Every time.
And now for our last segment of the show, welcome to Fire Dumpster Phoenix. It is rough out there, y'all, and we need all the hope we can get. It's time to go dumpster diving for some positive news and rise from the leftover Happy Meal ashes together.
I just thought this was darling. 95-year-old Frank from the Remington Heights retirement community in Omaha was enjoying talking about Taylor Swift's new album, The Life of a Showgirl, with one of those community employees. And she disclosed she was sad. She never got a response from Taylor with fan letters she sent across the years. Frank then decided that they would start a fan club, and members are now up to triple digits. Frank has enjoyed connecting with hundreds of people over their shared love of Taylor Swift's music and hopes to secure a visit from the star and their little slice of the world. The clip from the article, "You're never too old to have fun and dream."
Oh my God. Love that.
This little king.
Mine is also about an elder because I feel like we were both kind of like, in that, let's face mortality, but also recognize that, bitch, while you still breathing, you still got a life to live. Okay.
And period.
So this woman, Natalie Grabow from New Jersey, 80 years old. She did not even learn to swim until she was 59. She just became the oldest ever female Ironman finisher. And if you're not familiar, an Ironman is you swim 2.4 miles and then you immediately get on a bike and pedal 112 miles and then you immediately run a full 26-mile marathon. So her coach said—
She's 80?
She's 80. Fuck me, right? I couldn't get through a fucking Spartan sprint without practically having to get medevaced out of there. Oh, God. And this is a woman who grew up before Title IX expanded competitive opportunities for female athletes. So she came to this later in life. 20 years ago, she did her first half Ironman after just learning how to swim. And then a few years later, she did the full length. And so this time she conquered the famous course in Hawaii, setting that record for oldest ever female finisher. Holy shit.
I mean, wow. Shout out. Holy shit. Natalie, I'm putting you on my Pinterest mood board, I think.
Seriously. And on that note, maybe go out and do some shit you didn't think you're capable of.
Because
you want to run through a wall. Right.
No, I'm like, let's go, girls. I'm going to run through a brick fucking wall right now.
All right, listeners.
Well, that's all we have for this time.
Love you.
Go be existential. Bye.
This has been another episode of But For Real, produced by Valerie Martin and Emerson Ryder and edited by Sean Conklin. But For Real is a Gaia Center production. The Gaia Center offers individual, couples, and group therapy for clients across Tennessee and in person in our Nashville office as well as coaching for clients worldwide. For show notes or to learn more about our work, visit GaiaCenter.co or find us on Instagram at the Gaia Center and at But For Real Pod.
But For Real is intended for education and entertainment and is not a substitute for mental health treatment.
Also, since we host this podcast primarily as humans rather than clinicians, we are not shy here about sharing our opinions on everything from snacks and movies to politicians and social issues.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode.
See you next time, bestie.